Yeah, so I couldn't decide whether to do videos in English or in Swedish on this channel, but I kind of decided that I might do both depending on what I am looking at or covering. And my first thought was that if it's things that are in English that I'm looking at in English, I might cover it in Swedish more often. And if it's things like this that are from Sweden, I might cover it in English, because I thought maybe it would be interesting or more interesting for people abroad to see like how the talk goes in Sweden among different topics, and to be able to follow it more easily through someone that, you know, speaks both languages and lives in Sweden and is Swedish. So we've been having these press conferences all the time through this COVID era, and I haven't been looking at them like not all the time, just maybe the highlights at times, because honestly it's a bit tiring and it goes along the same lines often, and we didn't used to have journalists asking a lot of interesting questions. It was just more of the same and kind of more just like information. And honestly, since we've been open most of COVID, like mostly open, you know, we've had restrictions but not lockdowns and stuff like that, then, you know, many of us were out also trying to live our lives, even though there were things that I definitely did not agree with, and things like that. So yeah, so this is the I guess I got sent a question through some social media, not a question, but a clip from the last press conference of today, which was this one, and there was actually reporter asking a pretty interesting question, I think, but I haven't seen the question. I haven't seen what this is about, so I'm going to kind of react and explain at the same time. Let's see what it is. So I'll translate also.
Ja, hej. Jag har en fråga till Folkhälsomyndigheten. Jag tänkte haka på här Vetenskapsradion med vaccin.
Okay, so he has a question to the Public Health Agency, which is called Folkhälsomyndigheten, and the other agency here is the Swedish Civil Contingencies Agency, which is basically the agency that you would think of for like natural disasters and things that face society as a whole. And apparently it's about vaccines or something similar to that.
Flera läkare och forskare som jag har pratat med, de tycker det blir vilseledande när man pratar om vaccinerad och ovaccinerad med era termer.
Okay, so he says several scientists and doctors think it's misleading when they talk about vaccinated and unvaccinated people in their terms.
Alltså vi skulle kunna göra en enkät på stan. I princip alla skulle svara att ovaccinerad betyder att man inte är vaccinerad.
Yeah, if they did like a survey in a city somewhere, pretty much everyone would answer that unvaccinated means you're not vaccinated.
Vaccinerad blir man när vaccinet sprutas in i kroppen.
And vaccinated, most people would answer would be when the jab is basically injected in your body.
Men er definition, den lyder att man blir vaccinerad först efter att man har fått 2 doser och det har gått minst 2 veckor.
Yeah, but your definition means it's first after you have 2 doses and it's also past 2 weeks. Then you're vaccinated.
De som inte uppfyller de här kriterierna klumpar ni ihop då i en slasskategori som ni kallar ovaccinerade.
And those that do not fill those criteria, they are combined into a category called unvaccinated.
Oavsett om de har fått inga, 1 eller 2 doser.
No matter if they have 0, 1 or 2 doses.
Och vad ni sen gör, det är att ni konsekvent räknar utfallen under den kritiska perioden efter varje spruta och bokför dem på de ovaccinerade.
Yeah, and what you then do is that you count the outcomes after each jab, after each injection, and categorize those in the statistic of unvaccinated.
Det vill säga under den period då de sköraste av de vaccinerade har en förhöjd risk att få svår covid och andra infektioner. Den här kritiska perioden direkt efter vaccinationen.
Yeah, so in the period after vaccination, when they're at most at risk, and also the people that are most at risk, under this period they are counted as unvaccinated.
Den kan ibland se ut som en puckel i statistiken. Och ni tar alltså den här puckeln av dödsfall och sjukhusinläggningar och skriver över på de ovaccinerade.
Yeah, okay, so I basically saying, he's asking that since people get, in the weeks after people get any shot, then when they have any kind of event or reaction or something, this is represented in the statistic and it shows as a hump, like the curve. And then, let's see what it says, I'm gonna see again.
En puckel i statistiken. Och ni tar alltså den här puckeln av dödsfall och sjukhusinläggningar och skriver över på de ovaccinerades konto. Nu förstår jag att...
Yeah, and they take all that stats from those people that occur in the period after a jab, right? And after, like between the jab and 2 weeks after, anything that happens there, and that is categorized in the statistic of unvaccinated people, and that he means there's a lot of events like that when people get sick or gets a reaction that are categorized and they need hospital care, for example, is what he's saying, I think.
Det här är inte ditt beslut. Jag antar att ni har fått de här definitionerna av WHO.
Yeah, and he says, I don't think that is your decision. I expect those are the definitions that are coming from the WHO, the WHO.
Men hur ser du på kritiken att det här faktiskt är en manipulation av sanningen?
Yeah, and what do you say about the critique that is manipulation of the truth? And actually, I'm not sure which one he's asking now. If it's the Public Health Agency, I think, but let's see. Or maybe both.
Ja, men låt mig förklara varför vi har varit tvungna att sätta en definition för när man så att säga räknas som vaccinerad.
Okay, so she's gonna explain why they've had to put a definition of someone as vaccinated.
Det är ju delvis på grund av att i våra jämförelser till exempel så behöver vi ha ett tillfälle när vi definierar att immuniteten har gått upp så pass.
Yeah, so in their comparisons, she says they need a certain time or a certain time when the immunity has set in or occurred, is what she's saying.
I våra jämförelser till exempel så behöver vi ha ett tillfälle när vi definierar att immuniteten har gått upp så pass efter vaccinationen så att man ska räknas i den kategorin, och det gäller ju...
Actually what she's saying is that for purposes of comparisons they need a specific time when the immunity, she says, has gone up to the... She doesn't specify an amount or anything. She just says when the immunity has gone up so much as to, being able to be compared, I guess.
Våra uppföljningar av både infektioner och inläggningar i sjukhusvård och liknande.
Wait, I'm gonna throw back and see what she said.
För när man så att säga räknas som vaccinerad. Det är ju delvis på grund av att i våra jämförelser till exempel så behöver vi ha ett tillfälle när vi definierar att immuniteten har gått upp så pass efter vaccinationen så att man ska räknas i den kategorin, och det gäller ju våra uppföljningar av både infektioner och inläggningar i sjukhusvård och liknande.
So she says it's both for basically infections and hospitalizations in the statistic, that they need this definition to being able to compare and so forth.
Om man avlider.
And also for deaths.
Det gäller också till exempel vaccinationsbevisen och de covid-passen som behövs för resa. Så att det behövs en...
And she says that also is for the, what would you call, basically the vax cards that are your, whatever, I mean, both for the pass for travel, she says, and the proof, I guess, of vaccination.
Definition på när man ska räknas som vaccinerad och när man ska räknas som ovaccinerad, och då blir det ett binärt mått. Sen kan vi förstås följa vissa parametrar utifrån första, andra och tredje dosen, och det gör vi också. Men det är lite en annan fråga.
Okay, so she says we need this definition and it does become a kind of binary measurement, she says, but they also follow other parameters seen, the aspect of the first, second or third dose.
Jag håller inte med om din beskrivning om att vi döljer något här, utan
so she says she doesn't agree with the description that they are hiding something, but actually he didn't quite say that they're hiding something. I could go back, but I don't think I translated anything about hiding anything. It's more like he's asking about the way they, because this is the thing, right? The way you present statistics is I mean, I've studied statistics in school. You can present stats in different ways depending on which kind of, partly which kind of point you want to make, and also depending on, I guess, which kind of point you want to enhance, right? And which kind of aspect you don't want to enhance. So he didn't really say that, that they're hiding something. He implied that the statistic is misleading because it doesn't really say, it's a kind of arbitrary measurement that, there's a time period after each dose and each such occurrence when they're counted in the statistics as something that you would not expect it to be counted as. Like he said, if he went out with a clipboard, in a town square and asked people what is vaccinated and what is unvaccinated, people would basically think of someone that's had the medicine, or I mean, it would be the same case with any other medicine, right? If you had the medicine, then you're counted as having the medicine. If you have not, then you're not. This time period after, I think, has made it very confusing for a lot of people, and it's not only confusing, it is a way that the statistic is not, in my opinion at least, very clear, or to put it mildly, I would say, because if you get sick in that period, then I mean, maybe it should probably be like an entirely different category, right? Because let's say you had a bad reaction, and I know a lot of people that have had like, let's say, just kind of had a flu for a few days, basically, after each time. And I mean, let's say it's an older, more fragile person, might need hospital care for that. And in the statistic, that would actually show up as an unvaccinated case needing hospital care. And I mean, that is misleading. I mean, she maybe doesn't agree that it's supposed to be misleading, or that she's trying to be misleading, but it is kind of misleading to someone. I'm not even talking about some horrible adverse reaction here. It's more like, let's say an old person get a jab, and and gets quite sick with fever and shivers for like 2 days, let's say, and might need some hospital care for that, or I mean, in any such case, that is counted in the statistic as an unvaccinated hospitalization. I would think it would be that, because that is what the category says. And so I think she's going around the questions a little bit when she's explaining this. But let's see where they're going with this.
Vi är öppna och transparenta med de data vi har och de siffror vi har.
She says we're open and transparent with those data we have and with those numbers we have. And I've been following a lot of data numbers in 2 years now, and I would not agree with that assessment. I would not. I'm not saying specifically to this question, but we have not seen all the data and numbers in these 2 years. That is just not something I believe.
Fast nu pratar du om när det förväntade skyddet av vaccinet inträder. Jag pratar om de negativa utfallen som ni förflyttar mellan grupperna.
Okay, so he says, but you're talking about the expected protection from the drug, the jab. I'm talking about the negative occurrences after each time, negative effects.
Och tittar man på hur ni faktiskt har gått tillväga så ser man ju ett manipulativt mönster. När det hade getts en dos så placerades de smittade, inlagda och de som dog i gruppen ovaccinerade.
Wait, let's see what he says again here.
Pratar du om när det förväntade skyddet av vaccinet inträder. Jag pratar om de negativa utfallen som ni förflyttar mellan grupperna. Och tittar man på hur ni faktiskt har gått tillväga så ser man ju ett manipulativt mönster. När det hade getts en dos.
He actually says, if we look at how you conducted yourself, we see a manipulative pattern.
Så placerades de smittade, inlagda och de som dog i gruppen ovaccinerade.
So he says when people have gotten one dose and something happened, the infected and hospitalized and the people that died are placed in the group of unvaccinated.
Om det hade gått mindre än 3 veckor.
If it's
och de
past
togs alltså
less than
bort
2
från den
weeks.
vaccinerade gruppen. Sen när de flesta hade fått.
And they were removed in the statistic from the group of vaccinated.
Dos 2, ifall mindre än 2 veckor hade gått, så gjorde ni på samma sätt en förflyttning av personer som var smittade, inlagda eller dog till gruppen som bara fått en dos.
Let's see what he says here. Actually, I missed it a little bit.
Dos 2, ifall mindre än 2 veckor hade gått, så gjorde ni på samma sätt en förflyttning av personer som var smittade, inlagda eller dog till gruppen som bara fått en dos.
And after dose 2, if less than 2 weeks had passed, they moved the people that were, infected, hospitalized or dead to the group of people who had only one dose if it's occurred within 2 weeks.
Så nu var det alltså resultatet av de som hade fått 2 doser som ni snyggade till.
So it means the result of people that gotten 2 doses were, in the statistic, it was kind of beautified, because they moved the negative outcomes of people within 2 weeks after the second dose to the statistic group of people that have gotten 1 dose. So it's basically a bit weird when they, basically like this, one person gets 1 dose, waits X weeks, gets 1 more dose, and after 1 week they are sick, hospitalized, whenever. In the statistic then, they have been put in the group of people that, basically people of 1 dose in the statistic. And if someone had 1 dose and some negative outcome within 3 weeks, like hospitalization or death, or just infection, they were moved to the unvaccinated group. And let's see what they can do.
Och ärligt talat, alltså, man behöver inte vara Einstein för att se att det här trixandet, det leder ju till att det ser alltid ut att gå sämre än vad det gör för de ovaccinerade, och det gynnar alltid bilden av den.
Yeah, so he basically says, well, you don't have to be Einstein to find out that this juggling of numbers always pushes or contributes to the image that it basically the group in the statistic group of unvaccinated is going to look worse than the other groups because of this juggling with numbers, with this transferring of numbers basically.
Hade du en till fråga?
Oavsett om det handlar om dos 1, 2 eller 3. Och min fråga är så här. Det handlar inte om vilka siffror som helst. De ligger till grund för diskriminerande åtgärder mot dem.
Yeah, he says it's not any kind of numbers. These are the basis of discriminating measures.
Ovaccinerade, som nästan har blivit ett skällsord i samhället idag och lett till en enorm splittring.
What I said, they are the basis of discrimination and the measures that have been taken, like I guess he's talking about the vax sports that we have here in Sweden since suddenly December last year, which are basically for any kind of events or nightclubs or stuff like that. Basically they said I think over 100 people kind of events, but and sporting events and all kinds of stuff like that. They need the vaxport and there's no testing option at all in Sweden. So where does it go? I think they're about to interrupt him here, so let's see.
Varför grumlar ni den verkliga kontrollgruppen och när tänker ni redovisa hur det faktiskt har gått för de icke-vaccinerade jämfört med de övriga?
Okay, so he's asking very directly here. And also he says this has led to an enormous division in society when we have new words like almost curse words like unvaccinated, which is pretty horrible if you ask me. That, you know, it's come to this point in a lot of places. I think Sweden is not as bad as many places, but it's still bad. I mean, nowhere is good right now. I don't think the health of society, I'm not talking about the virus right now, but like the mental health of society and relationships are not good, right? It's actually been pretty bad for a lot of people, and I could do many videos and talk about that, but let's see. His very clear question is, when are you going to properly show the numbers of exactly how the outcomes look for the group, statistical group of unvaccinated as compared to vaccinated? And what he means is the actual group of the actual people that have taken no jabs at all this entire time, never, and the other groups that have. So instead of the kind of situation we have here when it's, you know, like he's calling it like muddied waters, basically, when you kind of, you take some stats and put it in a group, when does it really belong there? I mean, I can understand how I always try to think of the other argument in a situation, right? So I always try to think like, how would I argue the other side or whatever? And in this case, I can read their argumentation, and I don't quite agree, but I can understand like how they do it more than I can understand why they do it. And it isn't clear statistics. It's not, and it could be a lot more clear. And I think that's what he's asking for. Like, what is the pure like difference between any person that has 0 jabs as compared to people that have taken 1 jab and it's gone 1 day and they gotten sick, or 2 days and gotten sick, and stuff like that. Like all these kind of muddy little bit statistics, like 0 versus everyone that's taken anything at all. Doesn't matter when they got sick, basically. So if they got sick, you know, 5 days after they got a jab, and they got sick 2 days after or something like that, how is that? Like, when are you going to to show those kind of pure statistics is what he's asking. So let's see what they answer here.
Ja, nej, jag vet inte riktigt vad jag ska svara. Vi har väldigt mycket data, vi har väldigt mycket siffror. Vi följer upp på många olika sätt.
Okay, so she says, she starts off with, I don't really know what I'm going to answer. We have a lot of data, a lot of numbers. Yeah.
Vi tycker att vi redovisar och vi lämnar ut siffror och data utav de vi har. Så
we feel like we think that we show and that we present the data and stats that we have.
Ja, jag vet helt enkelt inte vad jag ska svara utan.
Okay, so she's basically a little bit stumped. She doesn't know what to answer, she says.
Vi tycker att vi är transparenta och redovisar det som är relevant.
Vi går vidare.
She says, we think we are transparent and show the numbers that are relevant. Oh, so it ended there. Actually, I hadn't seen how long the thing was. So they went on to some other questions after that. I think this guy is one of the few that's been asking tougher questions for quite some time. His name is Per Shapiro, no relationship to the other guy. And it is quite interesting. I should start following him more. So have they showed pure statistics? I can agree with him that those statistics are a bit muddied for the reasons I actually said also, that because it isn't uncommon for people to have a reaction that's basically making them similarly sick for a while, and that's a common one that doesn't seem very serious for a lot of people, but I would guess it could be serious enough for some people to actually get sick, right? I mean, if it's some older person or a person that are in a risk group, so to speak, then yeah, I mean, they could have a reaction that basically makes them need hospital care in some sense, and it is kind of weird, right, that would be categorized as an unvaccinated hospitalization, right? Because we know there are people that get those kind of reactions. It's not even that uncommon, right? I guess the more serious reactions are more uncommon in comparison to the amount of people that gotten it, but nevertheless, he has a good point, and I think this is something that's been following the same pattern, I guess, in the US that I follow a lot. But I think in the US, they're not really asking and answering questions in this manner. I think it's a bit different here in Sweden sometimes, that they are, held to having to try, or like she didn't answer the question, so I'm not going to say that it's better here, but it's different. I think it might be interesting if you're an American to see how it happens here. Yeah, I think it's a good point, because there's basically no clear statistic of where there's a statistical group of that only consists of people that never got the jab at all, right? Because in that group, in the stats, it's going to include a lot of people that had 1, 2, or 3 jabs and had some kind of event within those time periods, right? So I think that is something that would be quite interesting if they kept pushing for that kind of stats too. So yeah. I don't know. If you have any thoughts about that, then please put a comment or a question if there's something I missed explaining how this is being handled here. I'm gonna head on to something else now, so see you around.